Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Star Podcast by Start Berlin. Now, in this podcast, we sit together with Berlin's finest thinkers and entrepreneurs to take a deep dive into all things related to startups and growth hacking. My name is Svenja, and I'm so excited to be welcoming our very first guest of this series, Amir. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Svenja. Nice to meet you. I'm really happy also to be here, and thank you guys for making the time and giving this opportunity.
You are so welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us in the heart of Berlin. We are near Central Station, so if you see some trains walking by, then do not be concerned. So, Amir, tell us who you are, what are you doing?
Sure.
Stage is yours.
I'll try to keep it in a nutshell. So, my name is Amir, and I come from Iran. I left Iran when I was 19. I went to Dubai, studied for 2 years almost, then went to Vancouver. So my undergrad is in engineering, something like industrial engineering. And then after studying engineering, I realized I don't like any of the engineering fields, and I really love design. So I got into user experience and user interface design, self-taught myself, and joined a small startup in Vancouver. After a year and a half, I left that company because I wanted to learn more about the business side of things. I came to Berlin, did my master's in business, then left Berlin. My goal was always to have my own company. So I went back to Iran, where I was from, and started as a first PM product manager in one of the, it was at that time it was only 50 people, but it became one of the largest online travel booking platforms in the country. So in a year we grew from 50 to 300 people. I became the head of product, managing 10 people there. And that's where I really kind of learned the craft of product management. I quit the business, launched my own, failed miserably after a year. And after that, I started consulting startups in product in Iran for a year and a half. Then left Iran again, went to Toronto, led the product team in a small startup in the mobility rewards industry. And I then decided that I had a lot of fun in Berlin, and I really wanted to come back, and came back to Berlin. And now I'm a senior PM in one of the prominent HR tech companies in Berlin.
Cool.
In a nutshell, a lot of everywhere, but I try to keep it concise.
I mean, you lived the life, I feel like. You've traveled a lot, you've gained so much experience. And I hear this all the time from people who've been to Berlin once and then they come back and they just get stuck here and they never leave.
Yeah,
I feel like that's what the city does to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But so you're doing a lot, right? From what it seems like. How do you keep up with everything? I mean, in Start Berlin, we have a lot of people who are also aspiring entrepreneurs, and they have a lot on their plate, a lot on their schedule. How do you balance all of these endeavors with your personal life? How do you do it?
I mean, if I want to talk about it backwards, like what you need to manage your life, you need a good system for time management. And before knowing what you need to, in terms of time, how you need to manage your time, you need to know your priorities. And to know your priorities, you really need to know yourself. So for that, I would, obviously, none of these things I've done but I learned them through experience. So if I wanted to go back and do it again, I would do a lot of self-reflection, try to understand what do I value in life, what is important for me, what are my strengths. And then once I know those things, then I know that, okay, I need to prioritize these initiatives in my life. And then another tool that is really handy when it comes to achieving what you want to achieve and manage juggling a lot of things at the same time is discipline. Like discipline, if you have discipline, if you have time management, and you have a good system of being able to kind of allocate time to different priorities in your life, you'll be able to achieve many things. Like not everything is when you're doing it, you need to feel to do it, but just building that identity of someone who can do hard things, I think is something that is very valuable and important.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, you dropped a major keyword, which is discipline. I think also routines is something that falls into the same category, kind of.
Absolutely.
how is your, I mean, you mentioned you are a product manager at a big company here in Berlin. What are your daily routines in the life of a product manager? What does your day-to-day look like? What do you do?
Product managers, it's kind of like a vague definition. Like if you ask every product manager, they give you a different definition for it. But if you want to kind of bucket the categories of type of work we do, is majority of the work we do is called discovery. Mm-hmm. So we discover what are the customer problems that if we solve would lead into benefit for the business. So with that, we identify business opportunities by solving customer problems. So this definition of the problem is something that is key responsibility of PMs, and I would say the main responsibility. And then PMs would take that problem and work with designers and developers to shape the solution that would solve that problem. So that's another part of the responsibilities of PMs. And then after that, they would iterate on the solution by looking at the performance, looking at the data, both quantitative and qualitative, to try to confirm that solving that problem actually had business value and be able to improve the product as the company grows.
Yeah, gotcha. So you just mentioned an interesting point with data. So it seems like you make a lot of data-driven decisions also in the business, right? When it comes to launching a new feature, when it comes to just finding out which features people need. Maybe tell us a little bit more about the process behind making an informed data-driven decision.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, data it depends also on the context. Like we have qualitative data and quantitative data. You always have to kind of mix both of them. But it starts from asking the right question. A lot of times, like people just jump into, okay, what I need to measure, or they throw kind of terms like retention, engagement, things without even knowing how to measure it. But the most important thing to consider at first is to come up with the right question. What do you want to know? And then from that, you need to think, what do I see in data and what kind of metric, if I see, would answer that question that I have. So you need to understand that metric, how you measure it, and what are the trends mean. Like if it goes up, is it good or bad?
Yeah.
Sometimes people pick metrics that are vanity metrics. Like we have this many page views. Like that doesn't really matter, because if your website sucks, like people might go to a lot of pages and generate a lot of page views.
Just to see how much it sucks.
Yeah, and then that's not really a value. So they're called vanity metrics. So it's really important to kind of start with the right question, then figure out how to measure it, and then go and look up for the data. And more important than all of this is that how to communicate this data insights that you got out of data clearly for stakeholders in the company and others. Yeah.
I think that's something I hear a lot when it comes to just making a little detour to like marketing and influencers and whatever. What I hear people say a lot, it really doesn't matter how many followers you have, but how many engaged followers you have, right?
Absolutely.
So if you have a lot of website views, like in your case, but nothing is converting, like it doesn't really matter if there's millions of people on your website, if no one's making a purchase.
Yeah.
You know, that's just not the right KPI, I think, to look at.
Absolutely.
But like in the context of a product manager, when do you trust data to make a decision, and when do you feel like it's appropriate to just trust your gut and just go with the feeling you have?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the intuition and the taste you develop, they call it product sense.
Okay.
It happens through time, and it's similar to taste actually. Like if you have a lot of good food, you will develop a good taste for food. So I recommend, for being able to have that intuition and product sense, try a lot of different products. There are websites out there that, like Product Hunt or many others, that kind of every week they're showcasing a lot of products. So I've been doing that for years, like every week going on these products, try them out, check their user experience. Some of them I just use in my day-to-day as tools that I'm using or recommend to companies. So once you have that, then you will start having the intuition that is more robust. Because at the beginning, a lot of people just like argue based on opinion, but there's no validation behind it. So I would say give it some time for the intuition. At the beginning, if you were starting off, more rely on data. Once you have this intuition and develop it, then you need to mix these two, because not in all contexts you have data and you need to rely more on intuition. But it's always stronger if you have both of them, because data will tell you what is happening, but not why it's happening.
Yeah.
For the why, you have to talk to customers. You have to, rely on your intuition based on like other observations we had in the market. But in the end, these two kind of go hand in hand. Yeah.
Would you say product sense is kind of the equivalent of common sense in the product or project landscape?
It could be, yeah. Many people say it like that, but again, sometimes common sense to someone means something else than others. Like it's, for me, is that magic that you know that this would work, like without even having much conviction behind it.
Yeah. Can you think of an example where you had to take a data-driven decision and there was no way you could listen to product sense or your intuition or your gut feeling? Like it just really needs to be strictly down to data?
Yeah. I have two examples. One from the beginning of my career was when I was an intern in product, and one more recent. So the first one maybe is more relevant to your audience. When I started my internship in Berlin, I was working with a product manager who came from a journalist background. He was very tough, so he was kind of mentoring me. And we were launching a new product. Since I was more in the UX area, I was in charge of kind of onboarding the users on that feature on their mobile app. And I had there's this thing that you've seen in the apps, that kind of like a call out pop-up that you will dismiss, and it will kind of give you a hint about what that feature is. So for dismissing that feature, I had two different locations for people to tap on it to dismiss it. And then this guy was insisting that, okay, you need to keep one, you need to get rid of one of them. And then I was like, this doesn't feel right. I feel like people need these two different areas and people decide differently. So what I did is that I designed a click test in UX. There's a thing that you kind of give an interface, you tell people this is the action you need to take. And then when they click, there's a heat map of it. So I distributed that in the company, and when it came back, almost it was 50-50 between those two spots. So I took those results to him, and then he said he got convinced that, okay, let's put the kind of dismiss button on those two areas. So that was the kind of my first experience in how someone as an intern, like junior coming to a company, could actually prove to someone senior who had way more say in the product that what I was saying actually made sense because I had proven evidence for it. So
there's no argument against good data.
Yeah, exactly. It almost like kills the argument and conversation in a good way. Yeah. But and the more recent one I had was a much more advanced test than this, which was a scientific experiment, multivariant test they call it, in which you run multiple versions of an interface or product. And then you run the traffic through it, and then after a while you'll see which variant is statistically significant in terms of conversion. And that was on a sign-up page that we had. So we had 3 different versions of the sign-up with different social proofs. And then one of the variants ended up beating the other ones by a couple of folds. So we decided to go with that one.
Yeah.
So,
are you testing the t-values to ensure if it's statistically significant? I just had to do so much data analysis for my studies, so just hearing that gave me the shivers, but it's okay, it's not your fault. Okay, so in terms of AI, I feel like that's a topic that's in every professional field right now, be that marketing or product management. What are some tools that you can maybe recommend to future product managers out there to assist in data-driven decision making?
So I would kind of break it to 2 parts. Like one is kind of tools that you could use for data analysis, and it's also a very contextual question because it depends on what you want to measure, like what you want to do. But I would highly recommend to anyone to learn SQL, which is a language for being able to query databases and get the data that you want. Because the definition of data-driven in a company is from the moment you have a question in your mind till you have the answer of that through data, there's a time. A lot of companies, people who don't have this skill, need to go through a pipeline of BI team or data analyst and get the answers to that question. And this could take 2 weeks. And by that time, the question might become irrelevant. So if you have that skill and you can answer your own data questions, then imagine scaling that across all the teams in the company. That company becomes much more successful because that is a data-driven company. So learn SQL, and it's very easy to do it. When I was an intern, I did it in 3 weeks, and now with GPT-4 and ChatGPT, all these things, you can actually just say what you want from the data, and it will give you the SQL, and it will modify it to the levels that you want to query your database. So that is a must for everybody. Doesn't matter what field you're in, performance marketing and design, whatever. And the other one is in product analytics. I've been using Amplitude for many years. I've been installing it for a lot of companies that I consulted. In all of the companies that I worked for, also I set it up. And also in my own company, it was funny. We were using it both as analytics and also as a tool to help support team. We had an online trivia game show app, and people would call support and say, last night I answered these questions correctly, but you didn't give me the cash prize. So I taught support team to go back for that user last night and check the analytics timeline of the event to see if they actually answered all of them questions.
Did many
correctly.
people actually lie to get the cash prize?
Some did, yeah, some did. But with this method, we were able to catch many of them. So,
it's foolproof.
Yeah.
Is ChatGPT something you use regularly in
daily
product management?
Yes, I have a Plus account. I use it a lot every day. And I use it in many different scenarios. Like main ones, obviously, like SQL. If I want to write a piece of code, like I'm not a developer. I don't know JavaScript, for instance, but I managed actually to do a small little function and program to achieve something in the company using ChatGPT. And I also use it for another interesting use case that I have is for the interviews that I do with candidates for the roles we have. With their consent, I transcribe the conversation, and then for submitting scorecards, I have predefined prompts that I could say, okay, did they answer this question or not? If they answered, how would you grade it, and what were the good things about it? How they could improve, and then it would give me an excerpt of the transcript, so I could actually put a very accurate scorecard for this candidate, which makes the hiring process fair, and it will make enable the hiring team to be able to judge that person's qualifications much more accurately. So these are some of the use cases I use it, besides the writing and these general ones that everyone does.
Speaking of hiring, I think that's going to be something that's super interesting to a lot of people looking to get into product management, because I feel like there's a fine line when I read job descriptions. Like, some say you need to be able to code and develop, and some say you don't necessarily have to. You just need to be really good at managing tasks and seeing a project like end-to-end type thing. Is being able to code and develop a necessary skill in order to get into product management?
Depends on the product and the company. If you're working for like a product that their customers are developers, yes, you need to come from a technical background. If you're working for like an e-commerce, no, that's not necessary. So very much depends on the type of the product. I've seen product managers coming from so many different backgrounds. I've done design and got to product. I told you at the beginning that there is a PM that I work with which came from journalism. So he was really good in writing, communicating, all that stuff. So the most important skill I think for product manager is being a good communicator. Being able to convey your ideas to people, your arguments with evidence, like have a rational, logical way of conveying what you intend to a greater audience. So that's more important. But in general, getting into product management is really, breaking into it is very tough, because if you've seen all the job ads, they all require previous product management experience without actually having an entry position for it. So for people who want to get into this field, I highly recommend go from adjacent roles into product. So if you're a developer, go from developer, then go to the product management. If you're data analyst, go from data, then go to product management. There are roles that work with product managers a lot, like designers, developers, analysts. You could even go from business development, project management. These roles work with product managers, so they are easier to enter to. And then from that, you would be able to enter to product management.
I mean, at the end of the day, product management is so interconnected with other roles in the company. Like I know this in our company, the product manager used to be, I think, a founder's associate. And then I think some also did some sort of sales, because at the end of the day, you're building the product that other people are selling, right? You're fixing the things that maybe account management is telling you to fix, or that customer support is approaching you to, hey, we have an issue. So I think like that's actually a really good tip, to maybe not try to get into it directly, which you could, but it's probably really hard.
Yeah.
But to try to find a different angle to
exactly.
Kind of
I found that much
your way
easier.
in there.
Yeah. Even from customer success, like sales, because with that you will know the product. We have companies in our people in our company that are in like customer success and commercial roles, but they're super passionate about the product. These people are great candidates to go to product because they know the product inside out. They know how to talk to customers about it. So there are many different ways of going to product. But if you don't have any experience in breaking into product management, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Maybe just to circle back to one last point, and that's going to be my final question of this Star podcast by Star Berlin. Is there one tip for future, maybe product managers, junior, senior, whatever entry level, when it comes to data-driven decision making? One thing they should keep in mind, which will maybe give them a competitive edge in the industry?
Tough question. If I want to distill it to one, focus more on asking the right question. So instead of like looking at a vast array of numbers and struggling to make insight out of it, focus on getting the question right, and then go define the exact metric that will, if you find measure that metric, will answer your question. Then go find the data. So really keep the focus on question instead of looking at variety of in some cases meaningless data.
Yeah. So you heard him, you guys. Learn to ask the right questions, probably also the right people. That's just the sound of Berlin. Like, I love this. This is so authentic, right? We're just in the middle of Berlin. Amir, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with us today and being our very first guest on the Star podcast by Star Berlin. Everybody, if you enjoyed this first episode, make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Instagram. There's a lot more content to come with a lot more amazing personalities, such as Amir right here. Thank you so much, and maybe I'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Take
Thank
care,
you guys.
Bye.
Bye.